On the 12th of September 490 BCE, a mighty Persian naval force landed on the beaches of Attica, some 40 kilometers from one of the most important cities of the ancient Greek world, Athens. Under the order of the then Persian ruler King Darius I, this 26,000-strong expeditionary force was tasked with seizing the Athenian capital and burning it to the ground. In the process, destroying the young Athenian democracy and all future prospects of our modern democratic system of government. The Athenians, led by General Miltiades the Younger, are heavily outnumbered and saw little chance of success against the might of the Persian Empire that stood before them. But subjugation isn't an option, and the future of the known world rests in their hands. Before I begin, if you enjoyed the video, please consider supporting my work and content through my Patreon at the link in the description below. Due to the content I produce, YouTube does not take kindly to the topics I discuss in my videos, and thus censorship and demonetization is a major threat to the survival of this channel. By supporting me through Patreon, I am able to continue producing high quality content and ensure that that content remains free for you. And to make it worthwhile, my Patreon supporters will have an early access to upcoming videos, the ability to vote for future video topics, and exclusive digital bonuses like PDF booklets of my scripts edited and updated to include extra detailed information about the topics discussed in my videos. Thank you for your support, and let's get back to the video. The struggle for Athenian democracy was a tale of frustration and incompetence. In the years of 527 BCE, Athens was under the rule of Hippias, one of the three tyrants of Athens. After years of cruelty and unwarranted mass executions, the people of Athens had had enough. In 510 BCE, with the help of the Spartan king Cleomenes I, Athens expelled Hippias, and in his place Sparta installed a pro-Spartan tyrant, an Athenian aristocrat, Isagoras. Hippias, seeking to reclaim his rule, fled to the Lydian city of Sardis, which at the time was under Persian rule, in the hopes of gaining aid from the Persian court, promising them that if he was reinstated, the Persians would have control of Athens. Back in Athens, having been under the rule of a tyranny after just overthrowing a previous tyranny, rejected Isagoras, and a fellow Athenian aristocrat, Cleisthenes, is installed. Cleisthenes quickly took over and reformed the Athenian constitution, setting the stone for a proper democratic form of government. The Spartan king Cleomenes I was having none of it and marched his army to besiege Athens, demanding that they reinstate the pro-Spartan ruler. The Athenians, having been through enough, sent an envoy to seek help from the Persian court at Sardis. As the envoy approached the Persian court, the Athenian ambassador pleaded for aid, to which the Persian accepted, but only on one condition: that the Athenians were to give them earth and water, a phrase meaning a token of submission. With the Spartan army at their doorstep, the Athenian ambassador had no choice but to reluctantly accept. But upon his return to Athens, the decision was quickly disapproved. Over the course of the coming years, the Persians pressured the Athenians to reinstate Hippias as tyrant. After much frustration and seeing as the Persians were a threat to the freedom of the Athenian government, the Athenian court ruled for a decision that would affect the balance of the Aegean city-states for many decades to come. A declaration of open war on Persia. Relations between Athens and Persia soured, and this brave act of defiance against a large empire was an inspiration to many Greek city-states during the events of the Ionian Revolt in 499 BCE, where many Ionian cities under Persian rule took up arms and declared themselves a democracy. The Athenians played a big part in supporting the Ionian cities by providing military aid to combat the Persian forces. The Ionian Revolt exposed the weakness in the Persian Empire, and Athenian involvement showed that the democratic system was a direct threat to the stability of the empire. Hatred for the Athenians grew within King Darius I. As a reminder and to fuel his ambitions for vengeance, every night during dinner King Darius would have his servants whisper in his ear, "Master, remember the Athenians." After successfully crushing the Ionian Revolt in 493 BCE, King Darius I began plans to subjugate Greece and to destroy the young Athenian democracy. In 490 BC, a naval task force led by Persian commanders Datis and Artaphernes, accompanied by former Athenian tyrant Hippias, set sail for the Aegean Sea. This would mark the beginning of the first Persian invasion of Greece. The Persian naval task force consists of 600 triremes deploying some 25,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry, with warriors recruited from various contingents of the Persian Empire. After a successful island-hopping campaign capturing the islands of Cyclades and Naxos, The Persian fleet landed on the islands of Euboea and successfully besieged and captured the city of Eretria. The Athenians, aware of the impending situation, knew the Persian fleet was sailing towards Attica, the Athenian mainland. The Athenians were pressed on time and were limited on resources and manpower to face the 25,000-strong Persian army. At the time, Athens did not have many generals experienced in fighting the Persians, much less a foreign enemy. Miltiades the Younger, an Athenian citizen and prior vassal of Persia, was the only capable man able to combat the Persian threat, having betrayed Persia and began fighting the Persians during the Ionian Revolt. And thus Miltiades quickly assembled an army consisting of 9,000 infantry coming in from Athens, and an additional 1,000 troops recruited from the allied city of Plataea. The Greek forces marched towards the Bay of Marathon, quickly positioning troops to block the two exits leading out of the bay to prevent Persian forces from moving further inland. The Athenians carefully chose the battlefield. The hills of Marathon contains vast regions of swampy marshes and mountainous terrain which is perfect for countering any cavalry offensive from the Persians. The Persians, meanwhile, landed on the beaches and deployed their mighty army. Upon seeing the vast numbers of the Persian army, Miltiades ordered an Athenian runner, Phidippides, on a mission to Sparta to request for additional reinforcements, running the distance of the 225 kilometers from Marathon to the city of Sparta. Upon arrival, the Spartans declined the request as they were in the middle of a religious festival to which they cannot deploy their forces until the full moon arises in 10 days. The Athenians and Plataeans would have to hold out on their own. The majority of Greek forces were heavy infantry with few missile infantry units. The heavy infantry, known as hoplites, were well-trained warriors equipped with the iconic Corinthian helmet designed to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. Thick linen body armor, known as the linothorax, will provide adequate protection against any slashing attacks. The hoplites would be arranged in a phalanx, a tightly packed formation consisting of heavily armed hoplite soldiers with their large wood and bronze hoplon shields to provide excellent protection to the individual soldiers themselves and to their comrades positioned to the right. What made the phalanx deadly is the wall of spears carried by each hoplite. This makes it almost impossible for any enemy to penetrate the ranks of the soldiers. Miltiades had ordered the center formation to be long and thin at only 4 ranks deep, with the rest of the men being anchored at the flanks in an effort to make the Greek line as long as the Persians and to avoid being outflanked. In contrast, the Persians were lightly armed, with only basic training, simple wooden shields, and little to no body armor. But what the Persians lacked in infantry capability, they more than made up for it in their numbers, cavalry superiority, and deadly archers. For 5 days, the battlefield was in a stalemate, as neither side wanted to initiate a battle, with the Persian reluctance coming from their understanding that their infantry could not stand toe-to-toe with Greek hoplites, and with the Greeks wanting to drag out the standoff as long as they can, hoping that the Spartan reinforcements could finally arrive to bolster their ranks. Sources were unclear as to what broke the stalemate. One theory suggests that the Persians were detaching a segment of their cavalry back onto their ships to embark for Athens in an attempted surprise attack, thus causing the Athenians to break the stalemate as their biggest disadvantage, the Persian cavalry, was no longer in battle. But nevertheless, with the battle being in favor towards the Persians due to their numerical superiority, the Athenians were under pressure, as a defeat at Marathon would mean the complete destruction of Athens, as well as the destruction of any future prospects of a fair and democratic political system. The future of the known world rests in the hands of Miltiades and his 10,000 hoplites. At a signal, the Greek forces marched down the Bay of Marathon to face the Persians. When the hoplites were within range of the Persian archers, Miltiades ordered a full-on frontal rush towards the Persian front lines in an attempt to minimize the casualties from incoming missile attacks. The Persians, shocked at the sight of 10,000 heavily armed, burly men with menacing beards rushing towards them, hastily ordered their archers to fire volleys of arrows into the Greek line. Surely, by the time the hoplites reached the Persian front lines, they would be out of breath and unable to fight effectively. Under the weight of heavy armor and pure rage, the hoplites crashed into the Persian ranks and engaged in bloody melee combat. An epic struggle ensued. The lightly armed Persian infantry was no match for the well-trained hoplites. Many were slain and soon the Persian forces sustained heavy casualties. However, the Persians managed to break into the Greek center line, forcing the Greeks inland. The dense Greek flanks was proving to be successful in holding off against the Persian assault. Greek commanders, sensing an opportunity, ordered the flanks to push inwards. After much bloodshed, the Persian flanks fell, and the Greeks quickly encircled the Persians to support their struggling center line. Seeing as their flanks have fallen, fear and panic quickly spread through the Persian center, and the soldiers quickly broke in panic and fled the battlefield back towards their triremes. The Greeks gave pursuit, slaughtering all they can. The ancient historian Herodotus tells us a story of a brave hoplite soldier who lunged towards a Persian trireme and grabbed it with his two bare hands. The crewmen saw him and swiftly chopped off both of his arms, and to which the hoplite fell. The number of casualties are unclear. Ancient sources claimed that on the Greek side only 192 Athenians and 11 Plataeans lost their lives, while out of the 25,000 Persians who engaged in the battle, around 6,400 lay dead in the bloody sands of Marathon. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, the prior fleet of Persian cavalry along with the remainder of the fleeing Persian infantry were heading past Cape Suinion towards the city of Athens in the hopes of attacking the city while its garrison was limited. Knowing this, Miltiades quickly regrouped a portion of the Greek forces and swiftly marched back to Athens. Upon arrival at the walls of Athens, the Persians were met with Miltiades and his men standing ready to counter their assault. Seeing that the opportunity of a surprise attack was lost, the Persian fleet turned around and sailed back to Asia. A day after the fateful events of the Battle of Marathon, the Spartan reinforcements had finally arrived. Though they were late to the party, they did tour the battlefield and stated that the battle was an overwhelming victory for the Athenians. The Battle of Marathon was a significant event for the growing Athenian democracy as well as the developing Greek world, effectively signaling the start of the golden age for Athens and inspiring fellow city-states to push for democracy. Not only was the Battle of Marathon a significant event for the Greek political landscape, but it also showcased the effectiveness of Greek battle doctrine and strategy. Prior to the Battle of Marathon, the Greeks only fought amongst themselves, where each city-state's military forces employed similar phalanx tactics and strategies. The defeat of the Persians at Marathon revealed to the Greek military commanders the strengths and weaknesses of the phalanx. The legacy of Marathon lives on to this very day, as evident in our modern political systems and in the form of the Olympic Games, where the 42-kilometer marathon race pays tribute to a legendary but inaccurate retelling of the story of Pheidippides. According to myth, after the battle, Pheidippides ran the 40 kilometers from Marathon to Athens to announce the victory, having moments later fell dead, succumbing to exhaustion. If the Battle of Marathon was lost, modern civilization would have been totally different to what it is today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and supporting my channel via Patreon in the link in the description below. Patreon subscribers get early access to upcoming videos, the ability to vote for future video topics, exclusive downloadable PDF booklets of my scripts, and much more. Thank you so much once again, and see you next video.